Hello, what's going on? Rich Ryan here. Today we're going to be talking about hybrid training and how to sequence your training to be the most effective when that comes to doing cardio versus strength, and really what kind of order you need to put them in. So make sure you stick around so you can get the answers of how you can put this into your training and how much it matters, if it matters at all. But first, take a second to drop a comment about my beard and how great it looks. Second, make sure you subscribe and hit that alert button so you can get all of the newest information on hybrid training directly into your feed so you don't miss a single thing. And also a reminder, you can try our 7-day free trial for Hyrox and Dekafit training at the link down in the show notes. All right, let's talk about strength versus cardio. So for hybrid training, you need to be strong and fast. And a lot of times we need to bump up both of those if we want to have optimal performance for a Dekafit or a Hyrox. So in training, you need to do both of them. So will you be doing yourself a disservice depending on how you kind of structure your programs? So the short answer to this is that you should do whatever you are weakest at first. And really, it just comes down to building fatigue that is going to diminish how hard you can go in the other side of things. So if you are a runner or coming from a cardio side or OCR, you need to build up that strength so you can improve on things like the sled push, the sled pull, or the wall balls, the lunges, the rower, the skier. These are all power output kind of implements and stations. So if you need to get stronger, you should do your strength first. On the opposite side, if you are coming from more of a strength background and you need to work on your endurance pieces, it would be more advantageous to do your quality running work before you do your strength work. But in general, I would say to do strength work first and then do your cardio work second. So in my opinion, the strength will help your power output for the events and also for your running. It's been just globally accepted that strength training for running does improve your efficiency, your power output to the ground, and just makes you a better, faster runner. So the main caveat here is if you have a quality running session and you want to make sure you are improving your high-end running ability, that's the time when you might want to do your cardio, high-level quality running session first, so that it doesn't take anything, so that the strength doesn't make you more fatigued for that session. Now, there is a time where you can kind of blend the two together in hybrid training, and that should be probably between 12 weeks out from an event, where it might serve you well to do strength training and then go running under fatigue, because that's kind of what we're going to feel during these events. So the timing of the program also matters for when you're going to need to kind of shift around what work you're going to do. So I would say anything of 12 weeks and higher away from an event is to just completely split them so you can work on your endurance by itself and your strength by itself and raise your ceiling on each of those. Once you get 12 weeks and under where you're really preparing for an event, you can kind of blend the two together or run directly after your strength so you can feel a little bit more compromised, a little bit more fatigued in your running as you would during a Hyrox event. So when we're looking at this from a scientific perspective and you want to be as optimal as possible, there's some conflicting information here, and it has to do with the different pathways that will create the adaptation for both endurance and for strength, mostly muscle building. And the muscle building pathway is called mTOR, and the endurance one that will help increase your mitochondrial density is called AMPK. And these two don't necessarily work in tandem. The AMPK will blunt your mTOR abilities. So that's really your ability to put on as much muscle as possible. So it's just the muscle building part, not necessarily the strength part. And notice I said blunt and not inhibit. It's not one or the other, but they don't work the mTOR won't work at the highest level that it needs to if you're doing this endurance work. So that's oftentimes when we see these studies, it's about how optimal the strength training is going to be, and it's always pointed towards strength training. It's rarely about how well the two rise together. So when we do these studies, if it's a strength-only study versus a concurrent training study, the strength group is always a little bit higher by the end of the study, but the concurrent training one is also improving. So for the sake of hybrid training, we just want to improve. We don't want to be as strong as we possibly can. We want to be as strong as we can be with keeping our endurance high. So really doing the two together won't be that conflicting in terms of like the adaptations that you're going to get. But if you do want to be as optimal as possible and give yourself some time frames to follow when you are training, there was a study in 2016 that showed that about 6 hours of time of recovery it gave you the best chances to increase your strength with your endurance. And in this study, it's a little flawed because their endurance piece was more like Tabata sprinting as opposed to long distance duration cardio, running, stuff we're going to need for hybrid training, where we're going to be doing still like 65% of aerobic training is what you probably should be doing for hybrid training. So again, this isn't perfect, but it does show some evidence that a little bit of recovery time in between the two can be advantageous. So if you really want to dial things in completely, 6 hours is it's like an optimal window, six hours or more. Another thing to consider with this hybrid training is the nutritional aspect. So I mentioned how the two pathways, mTOR and AMPK, they kind of conflict, and AMPK can blunt the mTOR pathway. A lot of that has to do with how much glucose is available in your system. And as an endurance athlete or doing endurance work, you're going to be using a lot of that, and it's going to be harder to replenish going into more of a muscle building phase. So if there is less glucose available to your system, the mTOR pathway doesn't work as well. So the best way to make sure that that happens as you are doing your endurance work is to eat more carbohydrates. So making sure that you are upping your total amount of calories that are coming in, and your carbohydrate intake is going to help you be able to build muscle while you increase your endurance work. So it is possible, but it comes down much more to a nutrition equation than a what's better to do when, and how what kind of sets and reps to train in running and in the gym. It's more of how much you're eating and how much available glucose you have for both of those things. And that's also something that can happen if you're doing high level endurance work and you want to build strength. It's just that you're going to be burning more calories, you're going to be using more glucose, and you just aren't going to have that muscle building pathway as available to you just because you are a little bit more depleted. So to recap, you should do whatever aspect of training is weaker for you first. If you want to be completely optimal, you should give yourself 6 hour window between your cardio and your strength so you can get the benefits of both. You want to make sure you are eating for strength and for endurance, or you got to up your carbohydrates to make sure there is available glucose there for you so you can continue to build strength and muscle while working on your endurance. And finally, you can kind of progress how these things work together. So if you are 12 weeks and beyond from an event, you should separate the two so you can raise your ceiling of strength and endurance. If you are closer to the event, you can do them both back to back so that you are kind of feeling more fatigued for either running or the strength aspect, so that it gives you a little bit more of a race day feel. So I hope this was helpful. Again, make sure you're subscribing, hitting the little icon there so you can get alerts for when new training content comes out for Hyrox and Dekafit. Make sure you're following us on Instagram to get quicker tips for training at reinforce_running_rich. And check out our 7-day free trial for Dekafit and Hyrox training. We get 7 days a week of training programming for you built specifically around these concepts of building strength and endurance. Great. We'll talk to you soon.